extraction of being. In a certain land there lived a man and his wife. The husband, being very fond of his wife, loved her dearly. The wife loved him likewise. But the husband was a poor man, and they had only enough to live on by the work of the wife's hand. One day she said to her husband, "There is no reason why we should always live in the same way. You take care of the house while I am away, and I will see that the house does not suffer." When the husband heard this, he felt very sorry, for he knew that if she went away, she would never return. But the thought of her coming back was sweet to him, and so he gave her leave to go. His wife took her own life's possessions, a knife and a pair of scissors, and set out. She did not tell her husband where she was going. When she came to the road she had to take, she walked along it as quickly as she could, and so arrived at the place where she had left him. When she saw her husband, she was astonished, and could scarcely believe her eyes. Her heart sank, and she felt she must be dreaming. As soon as the husband saw her, he knew that something strange had happened to his wife. He ran to her, saying, "You have come back." Then he said, "Why have you come back?" But she did not answer. He tried to hold her to his heart, but she resisted. And as soon as he released her, she slipped through his hands and went away again. After this happened 3 times, the woman took up the things that had been given her and went off again. But her husband was determined to keep watch over her and followed after her. The woman took her way to the first house she could reach. She saw a woman sitting with some children playing near the door of the house. She thought that the woman was watching her and turned into another path. The woman followed her again and found her again taking refuge with someone who lived in a house. The woman sat down near her. The woman said, "You're a good-looking girl." "I am sorry," answered the woman, "that I should have come to you." "Why so?" asked the other. "My husband will kill me if he finds out," answered the woman, "for I have run away from him 3 times already, and I do not know what he will do if he finds me out." "But what is it that makes you want to run away?" asked the woman. The woman told her all about her husband. "If he kills me," she said, "he will be no better than a wild beast, and I would rather be dead than live with him." "And do you think I have any power to help you?" said the other. "Yes," said the woman, "you are very kind and gentle, and you speak like a sensible woman. If you can help me, I would like very much to go home to my husband." Then the woman made her sit down on the floor at the door of the house. She gave the woman food and bade her eat it quickly. Then she gave her water to drink and told her to drink it quickly too. The woman ate and drank as quickly as she could. Then the woman said, "Now get up quickly and go to your own house." The woman was frightened when she found herself out in the open air, for she did not know where she was. When she came to the road, she began to run, and ran till she reached her home. Her husband was very glad to see her, but she sat down and would not look at him or speak to him. But when he tried to force her to talk to him, she said, "My husband, you must not kill me, because I am not a wild beast, but I am afraid you will beat me." When he heard this, he became angry. "You're nothing but a wild beast," he said. "If you are afraid of that, I will kill you. Why do you want to make me angry?" But the woman said, "No, my husband. I am afraid of being beaten." The man thought that there was no chance of her coming back if he killed her, so he decided that she must stay there with him. But she was never allowed to go out of the house. As time went on, he grew very fond of her indeed. At night time, when he was asleep, she got out of bed quietly and put on clothes. And then she went down to the stream and washed her hair and bathed her face in it as though she were in water. She put on the clothes again and returned to bed. But her husband did not awake. And if he were called by his servants, he would not wake up. This happened every night. After some years, the woman became pregnant, and then the husband was very glad, for he knew that he would have a son. He rejoiced greatly at the idea of his son growing up strong and wise. But the boy was not a boy at all, but a girl. When the girl was grown up, her mother told her to look after her father's house, for it was a poor one. She was told not to do anything until she had looked after it well, and that if any of the servants did not obey her orders, they should be severely punished. The girl said, "Very well," but she did not want to look after a house at all. One day she took some oil and spread it upon some cloths. She threw them upon the fire, and then went into the garden to watch them burn. A gust of wind took them and carried them off into the sky. Then the girl thought she would make some more cloths, for she was very fond of cloths. So she took some oil and spread it on cloths, but before she threw them on the fire, she thought she would look at them. As she looked, she saw that there were 2 beautiful women in them. They seemed to be looking at each other and smiling. She threw them on the fire, but the wind took them up again into the sky. Then the girl thought, I will make more cloths and more cloths. She made more cloths with oil on them and spread them upon the fire. Again, there were two beautiful women in them looking at each other. The girl thought she would see what was in these cloths, so she took them and threw them on the fire. She did this many times. At last, one of the cloths took fire and burned itself to ashes. But before the girl had time to look at it, it had burned itself away. When her mother saw how busy the girl had been in looking after her father's house and in making cloths with oil on them, she told her that she was very clever and must marry. The girl was very unhappy and went into the garden to cry. But there were two men who saw her and followed her into the garden to tease her, for they wanted her as a wife for themselves. These two men were the two beautiful women whom she had seen in the cloths on the fire. When they saw her, they called out to her, "Come here, pretty girl." The girl was afraid of them, but as they spoke to her in such a friendly way, she went forward slowly toward them. When they saw that she was going towards them, they were pleased and began to speak more gently than before. "We are very happy that you came here." Then they both asked her if she would marry one of them. The girl was surprised because neither of them looked like a man. They both had yellow faces and pointed noses, but their eyes were large and handsome. The girl said, "I will not marry either of you, but if you will let me choose, I will marry one of you." The man answered, "If you marry one of us, you must leave this house and go far away where we cannot come to see you." So the girl chose one of them. Then he said that she must go with him, so she went with him. The other man followed after them a little way. He said to himself, "If this girl goes away with this man, I shall have no wife at all." So he went back to his own home. The man who had taken the girl went with her over a bridge, and then he turned and looked at her. "Oh," he said, "I forgot my sword." So he turned back again. When he came back, he asked her what kind of a man was this whom he had married, and the girl told him what sort of a man he was. He was very angry and wanted to kill her, but when he looked at her face, he was frightened. The girl told him not to be angry with her, but he would not listen to her. So he left her in a little village by herself. She did not know where to go, so she wandered about till evening came on. She could not find anyone to stay with her, to give her any food or a place to sleep, so she lay down in an empty room in an empty house and went to sleep. She was hungry and tired, and she did not know what to do. When morning came, she wandered about again until evening, but she did not meet anyone who would give her anything to eat or a place to sleep in. There was a small shed in one corner of the garden which had fallen down and was all overgrown with weeds, but inside it was quite clean. When the evening came, the girl lay down in the shed and went to sleep. In the morning she went out again and wandered about until evening, when she returned to the shed, and again in the morning and evening, until one day the owner of the shed came along and pulled out some of the weeds. The girl looked up from under the weeds and saw the face of the owner of the shed. Then she said, "Oh, please, sir, can you tell me how far it is to where I can get some food?" The man answered, "I am going to a village 3 miles off. You must be my servant while I am gone." "Very well," said the girl, and so she went away with him. She cooked for him as well as she could, and did what work there was for her to do. In this way she lived with him for some years. He had no child by her, but when she had been with him for 7 years, she became pregnant, and when a child was born, it was a boy like its father. When the man went away on business, he left his daughter with his housekeeper. While he was away on business, he came across his brother-in-law. The brother-in-law was very angry that his sister had been left with another man, and he said that he would kill her and take her boy away from her. The girl told him not to do so, but her husband's brother did not listen to her. When the man came back, he told his housekeeper that his brother-in-law wished to kill him, but that she need not be afraid, because he would protect her. Then the housekeeper said, "What can I do?" Then the man told his housekeeper that there was a little hut at some distance from his house, that if anyone came looking for him, she should take the girl to live in this hut. He went away again on business. Soon afterwards, the man's brother-in-law came looking for him. The housekeeper led his sister to the little hut at some distance from his house. When the brother-in-law came back to look for his sister and found that she was not there, he began to beat the housekeeper, but she cried, "Do not beat me! I have never seen your sister." The brother-in-law became angry and beat her again and again, but still she kept on saying that she knew nothing about his sister. When he had beaten her for a long time, he said, "I will go back home, but I will come again tomorrow." The housekeeper went back to her own home. The next day the brother-in-law came again to look for his sister and found that she was not in the hut. He became very angry at this, and he asked his wife why his sister had not been living with him as she ought. The wife told him that his sister had been staying with some people who lived in a little hut at some distance from the house. The brother-in-law went back to the housekeeper and asked her who lived in the hut. The housekeeper told him that his sister lived there alone with her child, that she was a woman whom nobody could understand, because she always went about with a smile on her face. Then the brother-in-law became very angry. He told his wife to put on some clothes, and they set off for the little hut which was at some distance from the house. When they arrived at the hut, they saw the housekeeper sitting at a little distance from it, dressed as a man, with her hair combed in a peculiar fashion, and wearing the sword. When the brother-in-law saw this, he went back to his own house. Now this housekeeper had a companion in this little hut who was a woman who had been carried away from a distant country by robbers and sold to a man who had bought her for his wife. She did not know anything at all about the customs of this country, and she had been doing all sorts of foolish things. The man had also bought a dog which used to hunt for people in this way. It used to go out hunting during the day, and at night it would lie upon the floor and bark as if it were guarding the house against thieves. It would bark very loudly in a voice which could be heard for a long way off, and then suddenly stop as if it had heard someone coming. If it were only a dog, it could not bark thus. It would have barked a single bark. When anyone came near, it would say, "Do not come near me." The girl said to herself, "This is the voice of a human being. If anyone comes near me, I shall be killed." So she used to stay quietly inside the house. When the man returned from his business trip, he said to his wife, "I have been to see our sister who lives at a distance, but I could not find her." The wife replied, "It is all very strange. I have been watching our sister for some time, and I can see that she is talking to someone inside this hut." Then they watched from behind the bushes, and when the woman saw them, she said, "There is someone standing outside this door." The man replied, "There is no one there." But when the woman came nearer, she saw that there was a person standing at the door, dressed exactly like a man and looking at her like a person. She ran away as fast as she could and went to her own home. When the man went to look for his sister, she was not there. She had gone away somewhere with her child. Soon after this, the man's wife became pregnant. When the child was born, it was a girl. When the girl was 7 years old, her father went away again on business. So she went out into the garden and looked at the shed which had been made by her husband's brother-in-law. When the man's wife had been left in charge of the house, she had had to do all sorts of work. But this was not a garden, so it was neglected. The girl looked at it and noticed a hole which seemed to be like an entrance. She crawled into it, and in it she found a room with a lot of beautiful clothes hung up to dry. She thought they looked like clothes that her mother had worn, so she took them down and looked at them and saw that they were like those which her mother had worn. So she put on these clothes and hid herself in this place. When it became dark, she came out again, but nobody saw her. Then she went into the house and got a light. She sat down in front of the clothes which were hanging up to dry. She noticed that they were like those which her mother had worn. Then she put them on, and when she was dressed in them, she found that they fitted her perfectly. So she looked at herself in the mirror which hung up on the wall and began to weep because she looked like a girl. Her face was white like snow, and so she cried aloud because she felt that her father would be angry with her for looking like a girl. When she heard this voice coming out of the clothes which were hanging up, she said, "I cannot stay here any longer." She crept out of the shed again. When she came back into the garden, there was a big bird sitting in the tree which stood near the shed. The girl called out to it and said, "Oh, please, sir, please help me." Then the bird flew down and said to her, "Well done. I am delighted to have you come back again. You are the little girl who has been missing for 3 years. I have been waiting for you." She thought that it was an angel who was speaking to her. "Now," said the bird, "you must be very clever and very brave. Do not be afraid of anyone, for I will always help you." After this they set off together and arrived at the house of the housekeeper's brother-in-law, where the girl was given food. After that she became his daughter and lived in the same house as his son, who was about 12 years old. The daughter of the housekeeper's sister became the wife of an official of high rank, and the son of the housekeeper's brother-in-law became a samurai and became one of Lord Kama no Kami's personal retainers.